All right. Welcome back to the Branson broadcast, where we re examine what everybody knows about the Bible. So let's see, if you ask an average religious person, or most people really, how do you get into heaven? They'll likely say something about being a good person, having your good works outweigh your bad ones. But where do we get this idea? It could be that it comes from the sacrifices of the Old Testament. The idea is that, of course, you sin, and so you have to bring an offering to cover that sin, right? That's why they call it a sin offering. Except that no, that's not how it worked. There is no offering that you could bring to cover, for example, adultery, murder, rebellion, and other major sins. The penalty for these was death, most often by stoning, I believe. You couldn't do the thing, with your neighbor's wife and then bring 4 heifers or whatever to cover it. You murder your coworker, what sacrifice would atone for that, for eliminating someone's husband or father? I mean, doing that was akin to a death sentence for the whole family in the cultures of that day, if you eliminated the man of the house. No sacrifice was good enough to cover all of that. What were the sacrifices for then? Well, the sacrifices were more about sanctifying the holy space of the temple. So imagine you were unclean because maybe you touched a dead body, even if it was part of your job, But you wanted to be in the presence of God, which, of course, was only available at the tabernacle or the temple. You had to do something to sanctify the space that you were violating by your uncleanness, hence the sacrifice. The blood of the offering, remember, was never applied to the offerer to cleanse them. It was applied to the altar to sanctify the space. Okay? This, in fact, is a big part of the book of Hebrews, which shows that the sacrifice of Christ on the cross was vastly superior to the sacrificial system of the Old Testament, superior in every way, because his blood is applied to believers, making them holy. Still, many people will insist that our good works should outweigh our bad ones, so let's analyze this a little bit. I guess the easiest way would be to ask the question, how many good works outweigh a bad one? Let's say I am a model citizen. I volunteer in the community. I feed the poor. I take in the occasional homeless person to help them get on their feet. I adopt 2 puppies a year and more. However, one night I get a little tipsy, drive drunk, and kill a young couple celebrating their 10th anniversary, leaving behind their 7 and 4-year-old children. No problem, right? Because I do all of these other things. Let's say someone goes to Ukraine after the war, please let it end soon, and start 100 orphanages, each one serving 100 children. So that's 10,000 children he's helping. Not to mention giving employment to the workers who care for them, the businesses in the surrounding stores that do construction or maintenance. They sell clothes, food, toiletries, bedding, etc. That's a lot of good. So how many children does that allow him to abuse? The question itself is abhorrent. No. No amount of good works allows one to mistreat another human being in any way, especially not a child. Yeah, but Michael, those are major sins. I've never done any of those, and I'm not likely to do any of them in the future. Because although I am admittedly imperfect, I am generally a moral person. Fair enough. Let's think about that a little bit. If we talk about the most immoral person who ever lived, who comes to mind, and why is it always Hitler? Whatever. He is our point of reference, so we'll run with it. We'll put Adolf over here at the bottommost point of the moral scale. Then, who is the most virtuous person we can think of? Excluding Jesus himself, since he kind of ruins the curve for everyone. For some reason, Maria Teresa is usually our go-to gal for the virtue, so we'll put her on this side at the top of the moral virtue scale. Now, where in this scale would we put ourselves? Clearly, none of us are going to equate ourselves with the Führer. That's obvious. We're not that bad, right? Right. By the same token, I doubt if any of us would be so vain as to say they were equal to the mother of the poorest of the poor, as some people have called her over here. So I think mostly we would go for the safety of the middle, with maybe a small adjustment toward the Teresa side. Am I right? Anyone want to say they're more like Hitler than Mother Teresa? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? No? I didn't think so. But in reality, it doesn't matter. Let's zero in on the middle. Now remember, in our graph represents every human who ever lived. Not just the ones that are living now, the 8 billion. Every human that ever lived. I saw a website that estimates there have been about 100 billion people throughout history. It's a lot of people. So now we have to find the dividing line between good enough and not good enough for heaven. So I suppose that line's going to be right in the middle, isn't it? Right? I mean, if we're talking about balance, it's got to be in the middle. So finding that fine line among 100 billion people is impossible, because no matter where you draw the line, if it's right in the middle, if it's 25% here, 75% there, whatever, wherever you draw the line, what is the difference going to be on either side of that line, comparing one person to another? It's going to be one white lie or one stolen paperclip. Because remember, the 8th commandment doesn't say, thou shalt not steal valuable things. It says, don't steal. So, do you want to be the person to tell one human that they're not good enough after pointing out the difference between them and the next person? What would their reaction be? Better yet, what would your reaction be if you were the person being told that you have to go to hell because you told one more white lie than the next person? Does that sound anything like fair? Don't think so. That's why any system of merit is inherently unjustifiable. In one sense, I suppose we could say that the system works on the outliers, the Hitlers, Stalins, and human traffickers on one side, and the Mother Teresa's, Florence Nightingale, doctors, and other salt of the earth on the other. However, it's in the middle where the system becomes extremely arbitrary and basically useless. So, many people say that they believe in God. Do you believe in God? Yes, I believe in God. A better question is, do you believe God? Especially when he tells us how to be saved and the value of our good works in relation to our salvation. For example, Ephesians 2:8 and 9, very popular, well-known verses. This says, it is by grace you have been saved through faith, not by works, so that no one can boast. What, are you going to try to impress Almighty God with your good works? You're going to tell Jesus, look at what amazing things I've done? On the other hand, how does God, this Almighty God, how does he describe our virtuous acts? He tells us in Isaiah 64:6, all our righteous acts are like filthy rags, he says. So then somebody might say, well, of course, but that's why we go through purgatory, is to clean away some of those extra wrongdoings. Well, okay, but the verse doesn't say, by grace you have been mostly saved. Either Christ's sacrifice on the cross was good enough or it wasn't. Yeah, but in James it tells us to work out our salvation. Well, what he means is that he wants us to verify our salvation through our works. A believer who does not change his bad behavior in any way, continues to, get drunk every weekend, doesn't try to help others, or otherwise doesn't show any fruit of the Spirit, this person will have a hard time convincing anyone that they are a true believer. True, only God is the judge. But I think he's looking too, eh? I think there will be greater condemnation for people who name the name of Christ, but are not true believers, not truly converted, not really interested in living out their faith with fear and trembling. If you truly are a believer, it will change your life in some way, and often in significant ways. So don't try to impress God with your righteousness, because you really can't. It's better to put your faith in Jesus and live the best you can as a result of your salvation, not as a way to earn your salvation. It's as simple as that. So have a good day, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.